Hi, my name is Joyce Soto, class of 2013.
I'm Jose Trujillo, class of 2013.
And we're here to interview Raul Aguirre, class of 1974. And we're going to start off with our first question. Can you describe South Tucson when you were growing up here?
Probably not much different than it is right now, although a lot better in many ways. I still, some of the buildings are gone. I used to live on 33rd and 9th, right across the street from the House of Neighborly Service, where Mr. Ashwood used to hire my brother and I to be the guys who will, handle the baskets for the only swimming pool in South Tucson. If you wanted to swim, you had to come to Kennedy Park, which was much later, like in the 80s almost, or go to Santa Rita Park. So we used to really enjoy, being across the street because he had basketball courts, and then down the street there was a yellow front where you could buy everything. That was the original dollar store, yellow front. So my mom liked to shop there. It was pretty nice, it's a 1 square mile. There was a lot of Tono Otam people, next to us, our neighbors, and there was one black family, and the rest was all, pretty much Chicanos, newly arrived Mexicanos from the border, Bordeños, and just a fun bunch of people. We used to box, we used to play, make our own one-on-one tournaments before those tournaments became, or 3-on-3 I should say, before they became, popular. And, overall it was very, very healthy. We used to have a really good time. I used to work down the street on 10th Avenue and 33rd at Urrea's Bakery, which was one of two panaderias, bakeries in the city. One was Lujan's. Well, La Caves was always been a bakery, but it was more like the high-tone bakery. The Chicano bakeries was Urrea and Lujan's Bakery, and I used to work there for a couple, 2-3 years. So it was a lot of fun. I think the summers is what I remember the most. It's a very, obviously very hot, very dusty, very, very cool, very rasquachi.
What major historical events or crises were going on while you attended Pueblo?
Well, obviously, the walkouts in Los Angeles had just happened, within a couple of years. In 1969, 70, 71, when I was a freshman, there was a lot of that going on. La Raza Unida Party was coming into Arizona, where Salomón Valdenegro and Raúl Grijalva was two of the Chicano leaders who was involved. We also, there was a lot of, for the first time, there were a lot of activities around education and education for Chicanos. In this very school, I had a great teacher. His name is Saturnino Santa Cruz, El Viejo, the older one, who was the first guy who introduced me to the whole notion of Chicanos, Chicano history, understanding who you are, where you are, why you are. There was also the candidacy for Raul Castro, the first Chicano governor, after Apodaca from New Mexico. So politically, there was a lot of things going on that were very exciting. And then the rest is the usual thing, looking for a job and trying to not get too crazy on Nogales Highway as you were driving your car. I used to have a real nice souped-up Nova 1969, green with a white top. Oof, check it out.
Many alumni have talked about your activities during high school. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, I wasn't really hugely involved in the school because I worked graveyard most of the years that I was here. From my sophomore year to my senior year, I worked graveyard at Denny's restaurant. So I used to come, do my thing, go to pee. I used to be a runner, so sometimes I ran with a cross-country team. I had ran in Nogales, where I'm from, originally with the Apache team, and then I run with Mexico and their team. I used to run the 5,000 and 10,000 meters. So I was a miler here, and but I really didn't have time, so I could never really be in the track team because I worked, and I had to go home and do my homework and then go to sleep, then get up at 10 o'clock and go to work at 11 o'clock at nighttime. So I kind of hang around the parking lot checking things out, and in the meantime I was just kind of looking at my plan as to what I was going to do after high school. I was a good student. I was one of the top students. I graduated top of my class, but I really was never very, very involved. And I don't know if that was, again, because I work graveyard and your energy levels are kind of weird, because I used to always be wearing glasses. People thought I was doing drugs, which I never did drugs. And yeah, because people would see me with these dark glasses and go, "Hey man, what's up? What you got?" And I go, "I got sleepy. That's what I got." So then I worked, like I said, 11 to 6 in the morning every day. So I really wasn't very involved except on running sometimes, and then got a little bit involved when a friend of mine, Lorraine Lee, ran for class president, and that was fine. But other than that, it was not it wasn't that kind of experience for me.
Can we talk more about your activism during school?
Well, when I was, again, I wasn't really involved in clubs or anything, but part of the Spanish club, I remember, I used to, my whole thing, and I guess my life work later on became, looking at people who came here that spoke no English and that were being sat in the back of the room, like they were not, there was no bilingual education at the time. So people were not being recognized. So one of the things that I did here is try to get students to be recognized for their talents just because they didn't speak English. They didn't know that they were not smart. There's a lot of smart guys, a lot of smart people here that were not being taken care of. And also, I think being in touch with the people on the outside, like the Raza Unida Party, and talking to some of those leaders that were up and coming, I was very aware of how what is now known as the Latino movement or the Chicano movement, we needed to do better things. We needed to work at not just ESL programs, but really bilingual, multicultural education, looking at Chicano history, looking at literature. So I began to talk to teachers and students about, understanding that part of your identity and having the school embrace it. And to this day, I am the chairman of the Mexican American Studies community group board, and we're still fighting for those kind of things to be recognized. So to me, I think early on, I really recognized the value of our culture, of our history, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. And I mentioned earlier, that's why when Lorraine Lee ran for class president, I was telling her, say it in Spanish, don't say it in English, speak Spanish. And she really got a huge crowd. I was kind of like her manager, I guess, but on the side, I used to go, Lorraine, come on here. And I became her mentor for, when she went to work for Chicanos por la Causa and many other things. So I think the movement of the Chicano movement really shaped my opinions about America and what I wanted to contribute back. So I wanted to spread it out with people talking about, again, what was going on in California at the time, in Texas, in New Mexico, in terms of the land grants, Reyes Tijerina, Cesar Chavez, all those people that later on I got to meet and work with.
Who was your inspiration during high school?
My inspiration? Well, I'm kind of a really independent guy. Even I work in national and international television for a long time, and I was always very uncomfortable with people kind of putting me in a pedestal or asking me for autographs, kind of like, ugh. So I really never, I've always, I never idolized anybody like that, but I think in terms of inspiration, I think one little short lady about less than 5 feet, my mother was very much, she was a wonderful, inspiration that she carried a big stick. She never let me, get away with anything. But she was always directing us in the right way. So I think in my home, I had that inspiration that she wanted us to do better. She ruled by example. She was entrepreneurial. She wanted you to do well. If not, she forced you to do well. I knew that joke about the chancla before anybody knew it, because my mom had 2 chanclas that could go flying around like boomerangs and hit me and my brother quicker than anything else. So my mom was a big inspiration, I think. Looking at my family and looking at some of my family who didn't do as well, in a way that was inspiration, because I would see them and say, what a tragedy it is to lose a cousin or another person in your family that could have been great and didn't make it. So I was inspired by some of the stories around my family. My grandfather was a great inspiration to me. He was a very noble human being, very humanitarian, very giving. But later on, some of my big heroes was, Cesar Chavez, who I met many times, who I interviewed many times. the Valdez's brothers, Danny Valdez, Louis Valdez, who became a great director La Bamba, Reyes Tijerina, who I thought it was a fiery, kind of guy who, much older but really strong. He was a pastor. Dolores Huerta, who I met a few times, and it was a wonderful opportunity to meet. People like that inspire me to do better. And locally, people that went to this school, Hanko Yama, Beto Guerrero, Pepe Garron, Macario Saldate, those kind of old timers that, Saturnino Santa Cruz. I think if he hadn't reached out to me and said, I see talent in you, I think you're gonna go big, you're gonna do well. He's the first person, and another teacher here, his name was Mr. Lavelle. Mr. Lavelle had no business being with me, except that he took me out of a class that they had put me in. It was a class that it was, supposed to teach you basic skills. And he said, you don't belong here, you belong in a much more competitive setting. And he kind of coached me through applying to the National Society, trying to get scholarships. So Mr. Lavelle and Mr. Saturnino Santa Cruz were two of the big influencers on me getting an education, which I think if you get a great education, you can save yourself from anything that could be negative in your life.
In your opinion, did you ever have any favorite classes or important classes?
Yeah, I always liked English, and I always liked social studies. I remember I can't remember her name, but she was a little short, very wiry Anglo teacher that I had, and I always used to rib her because I would tell her, you need to teach Chicano studies here, you don't teach anything about us. And she would go, I know, I want to do it, but I can barely get through slavery, so don't bother me, Raul. And she was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed her class because you could ask her hard questions, and she answered them. And I wish I could remember her name. So social studies, history was my favorite, still is my favorite. I'm a big history buff, so I read a lot about our history first and the history of the world as well. And great, all those kind of areas. I love to write. I actually wrote an essay here one time that was published in the Scholastic magazine. And then I went and competed at the national Spanish language competition, and I won first place in the state and second place in the country. So that was kind of a cool thing. I mean, I was walking around, I'm bad, I'm bad. And in Espanol, I'm very bad.
Who would you go to school with, who'd you hang out with?
Oh man, just hoodlums.
They didn't do nothing big today, they didn't do nothing.
I wish I could tell you that and I shouldn't call them hoodlums. They were good people. And I said they were, because some of them are no longer with us. Again, those are my inspiration. I used to hang around the parking lot. And at the time I used to actually smoke. So, we used to hang around, and I had long hair and bandana and, cholo shorts. I'm just kidding, there was no cholo shorts yet. But I used to hang around with people that, that were pretty much trying to get, by their families. And not they were not the top students. I try to help them. And as a matter of fact, I have an anecdote. When they announced at my graduation, and we're sitting there at the stadium, and they're all sitting there, and they're passing a bottle of tequila around there, and they're drinking Bacardi, and whatever, that's kind of what they roll. And I remember they announced that I had gotten scholarship offers to California schools, Arizona State, UCLA, U of A, and they all look at me and they were like, "What?" And I go, I told you guys I was a good student, I'll be right back. And I got up and went to the stage and got my diploma. And when I came back, I could see their face, they were proud of me. But at the same time, they were bummed out that they were not gonna go to college. I did have some great friends like Jose Duran, who became a doctor. He's an OBGYN in Nogales, great friend of mine. Lorraine Lee, who's a wonderful person. Let's see who else that I can think of. I forget some of the names of the people, but I had different relationships with I kind of went in and out from the vatos in the barrio to, you know, being outside. And to this day, I can do the same thing. It's one of those gifts that you get that, you know, I could be in the parking lot and causing terror, but I could also, I was a real good student. You know, I try not to get in trouble because my mom would really get me then. But I had some good, you know, I had some good people that I really admire that did really well. There was a young man named Wensley Eng, and Wensley Eng became a pharmacist. He was, you know, he was I believe he's Chinese American who did really well. I really liked him, and we got along, and we were competing all the time about who would get, you know, top prizes. That was kind of good. So just different people that you know, but really I hang around with the neighbor guys.
What we'd really like to know is, like, how was college for you? What was your transition like from high school to college?
You know, I used to say that when I was 15, I was already 35. So I was very mature. I really didn't mess around too much. I knew what I wanted to do in relationship to. Well, actually, let me take that back. I knew what I didn't want to do. When my counselor told me you should go to Pima College, who had just been started, and nothing wrong with Pima College, okay? But my aspirations were a lot bigger. I had actually written a piece of paper next to my, well, not to my room, because, you know, we didn't have a room. We had a room for like 4 people. And, but in the bathroom, I put a plan for the future, and I wrote what I wanted to do. And on top of it said, I want to graduate from college. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be famous. I want to, you know, have a lot of power. And I put it there since I was about a sophomore. And I, you know, try to work on those kind of things. So I knew what I didn't want to do. I just didn't know what I wanted to be. But I didn't want to be working at Denny's, working as a cook, 11 to 6 in the morning the rest of my life. As I told my counselor, when she told me maybe I could be a good, she had told me maybe if you go to Pima, you can become an air conditioning repairman. And I told her, you know, I already do that. My dad knows how to do all that stuff. You know, he already taught me how to do that. I really don't want to. Oh, but you get a diploma, you get good money. And the thing you do, and you know, if you want to be an air conditioning repairman, by all means, a plumber, wonderful. You know, I lay brick, I lay tile, I know how to plaster, I know how to do a lot of stuff. Thank God, thank you to my dad. But and my tios, my uncles. But that's not what I wanted to do. I just knew that that's not what I wanted to do. And I told her as much. I said, I don't want to do that. And she told me, well, you know, you have a very huge accent, and that's going to preclude you from being to college. And I go, that's amazing, because don't they, like, people from all over the world come to the university? They got to have accents. It's not just my accent. So I lost faith on that particular person. But again, I had Saturnino Santa Cruz who told me, mijo, don't worry about it. Don't listen to people. Just do your thing. Apply to the U of A. We're going to get you through. We're going to get you in. You're going to be okay. Don't worry about it. And I joked that I used to tell her, I want to go to the U of A. How come I can't go to the U of A? and because, you know, the pronunciation of U as such. But I did, and the transition was harsh because even though I was one of the top students, I was not ready for the load. I wasn't ready to write that much. I wasn't ready to be there. And since I worked graveyard most of the time, high school was easy to me. I mean, I did all my homework, turned it in, took a nap. I mean, it really wasn't challenging to me. As much as I took English AP, I mean, I passed English AP. I'm a good writer. I've written for, you know, for screen, for videos. I've done, you know, newspaper reporting. So I knew how to do all that, and it was great. I just didn't, you know, the academic part of it was tough. So when I went to New Start, my teacher, the first week told me, come over here. Here's your paper. And it was bleeding, it was all red, like every sentence was a red, no, yeah, what the heck I just said. It was really bad. And he said, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're gonna make it. And I said, what do you think is the problem? And he goes, you're English, that's the problem, you don't know how to write. And I said, probably not. I said, you know, I've really just recently came to learning English, so let's see what we can do. Then he goes, what do you mean, let's see what we can do? Now, think about that. It's called negotiating. It's done wonders for me now. So I said, yeah, if you let me write about what I know, I think I can do a good job. Because what you tell me to write is so alien to me, so different, so foreign, I can't really, I don't even understand it. And he goes, so what do you suggest? I said, let me do my own essays. Let me write about what I know. And then you tell me. And if I don't make it in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or let me stay through the duration, and then flunk me and kick me out. And he went, and I remember his name was Mr. Yates. And he goes, look, okay. I mean, I could see in his face going like, this boy ain't gonna make it. You're toast. So I started writing about working graveyard, and I started writing about running, and I started writing about little rural Mexico, where I knew a lot of people, you know, Imuris and the famous quesadillas, you know, and Cibuta, and where we used to go in the summers to the river and talk about the norteño lifestyle, which since then I called them bordeños, you know, we're border norteño people. So I started getting creative and writing all this kind of stuff. To make a long story short, when I finished, by the middle of it, he told me, I love your writing. I love this stuff. This is so great. Now do this, fix that. This is a new paragraph. But he started getting me D's and C's, you know. And when we finished the 9 weeks, he gave me a B. And I don't think he gave it to me. I earned a B. And he told me, you know, I want to tell you, I've never cut deals with students. I felt bad. But you were so convincing. You wanted so badly to learn. And you showed me that it can be done. I mean, I really like. You're gonna do really well. So that really launched me into my freshman year very strongly, because I had the confidence that I could take over, you know, the body of work, and I felt good. But it took a lot of work. I had to work. You know, I used to finish at 2 a.m. At Denny's and clean everything so I could study, you know, till 4 or 5, and then the rush will come for 1 hour, and then I'll go home, take a shower, go to college. And I did that for 1 more year. Then after that, my own vocation found me. I was walking down the Modern Languages building, and I had been trying to get into radio. And I've been going to Spanish language radio stations. I made a proposal for a bilingual format, and nobody was picking it up. So then there was this little thing that said, wanted bilingual host for a weekly program. Apply until this date. And I look at it, it was the last date. That was the day that there was the last day that they were going to do it. And it was about 3 o'clock, and it closed at 5. And I walk in there, and I told the guy, I'm here for that job. And the guy goes, okay. Okay, well, hold on, guys. Let me see if we can get a couple of cameramen. They put the cameras on, and the guy goes, you know, this is what we need. And then he interviewed me. And I went at it. When I walked out the door, he goes, if you could cut your hair. And I said, whoa. This is college, man. What do you mean cut my hair? I'll perm my hair. And he goes, whatever, just make it look a little bit better, and you got the job. I mean, just like that, my life turned around into broadcasting. I became a radio announcer shortly after. I'm credited with being the first, the one to create the first bilingual multicultural radio station in the Southwest, you know, at least. There was nowhere else. The Tejanos were doing some kind of a bilingual station, but very more pocho than bilingual. So it was more bipocho instead of bilingual. And I brought a lot of people from the university, became a real big hit. We were competing with English stations all the time. And then I went to do television. The program lasted for about 3-4 years. And the rest is history. I've been a producer, a director, a writer. I work in international television for 8 years. So I will say that my vocation found me at the university as I was walking that day. It was a great, faithful day because I didn't know what I wanted to be. But once they turned the camera on, once they turned the mic on, once I started writing stories, I knew that's where I wanted to be.
Who's your inspiration now?
Well, you know, I believe inherently in family. So I think my kids are my inspiration. You know, largely when I see the flashes of genius, you know, what they want to be when they don't know what they want to be. You know, they're artistic. They're you know, they kind of move in an ambience that is totally different than my experience. You know, they never had to do a lot of the things that I had to do, but at the same time they work hard to be the best they can be. So I think I marvel at, you know, at Obama. I mean, I went to his inauguration and I thought, wow, what an amazing thing. I took my kids to see history happening. So you know, he's probably one of those cutting edge game changers that I really think is great. I have an older daughter, Marisol, who's, you know, just I think a lot about how she is, and she inspires me to do more things, and all my children, you know, Alejandrina, Gabriela, my other girls. I have 7 girls and 2 boys, so I have a lot of inspirations between all of them, you know, to look at. But my family, you know, my wife, I think I draw a lot of strength from that, because the world, you learn as you get as old as I am, that the world is pretty different, you know, once you get to certain stages of your life. You know, when you're real young, you know, your friends, you're walking around, and you realize that really your family, your inner strength, you know, I know that every time that I gotta get up in the morning, I gotta look at myself in the mirror and go get them. You know, you gotta kind of build yourself into a skill set that is very strong. I think I'm inspired by excellence. I'm inspired by thinking, you know, by the process of thinking ideas. Sometimes my kids go, "My God, how'd you think about that, Dad?" And I go, "I have no idea. It just came to me." You know, like divine intervention, which I believe in, divine intervention. I tell people, don't wait for the right time for something to happen to you. Just do it, and then divine intervention will, you know, divine providence will take you. A lot of the things that I've done, and I've done a lot of things that people consider first, you know, whether it was international TV or, you know, first bilingual radio station, or, you know, doing, you know, the first of my family to graduate from anything, to, you know, being the first business owner, you know, creating the Hispanic Chamber, working with Chicanos por la Causa, whatever it is. I've always said that at the end of the day, I really didn't do anything special. I really just showed up. And then things began to happen. And I always say the number one thing is showing up. If you show up to the party, something's gonna happen. And I still believe at this stage of my game that if I show up, things will happen. Good things will happen to you. You just gotta be ready for that opportunity.
What is some advice you would give to public students?
Well, it's time to go home. Advice. I think is when you show up, as I mentioned earlier, showing up is the number one rule. If you don't show up, you can't be part of anything. So show up to the game. And even if you're not ready, go ahead and play, try hard, do what you want to do. And I hate sports analogies, especially for young women, because, you know, they don't work. And having, you know, my daughter said I never use sports, but the game is the game of life. If you don't get up early, if you don't get going, you know, I tell students, you know, like when they think about college, get in, get going, get done, give back. That's life right there. But you got to show up to get going. If you don't show up if you're afraid, if you know, I always say the number one quality of leadership is to be fearless. You must have courage. You must show up. Even if you feel like, believe me, many of the time, you think I was ready to do a bilingual television program with my accent? I wasn't. I got better. I got good. You know, when I went and directed my first video with artists and people, was I ready? I've never done it in my life. When they told me, can you give me the plot of all the slots that you're going to be doing? I went like, yeah, sure, in a second. Then I found out, get it done. So showing up. I think you got to think about your objective. Plan that objective. And then do it. Think, plan, and act. All those three things have to come together. If you think about something forever, and I have friends that I still go see. And we may sit there and be talking, and they go, hey, you remember in 1974 I was going to? Sad. Because it never happened. Because they thought about it, but they didn't plan, and they didn't act. In order for things to happen, I'll tell that to students, you need to think, to plan, to act. Those three things must come together, and you will be very successful. Couple that with knowing who you are, where you are, and why you are, and you are an unstoppable force. You will believe in yourself so deeply that no one and nothing can stop you. You know, at the end of my radio programs, I used to say, remember, equal to you, everything and everybody. Better than you, nothing and no one. And I still believe that. Every day I believe that. When I go out to do business, when I do presentations at, you know, internationally or here in the States, I always believe when I get into that stage that, you know, no one is better than me. And then I go to show them how good I am. And I think that's the advice. Go show them how good you are. And then your goodness and your greatness and your excellence will come through.
There isn't anything that you wanted to do and didn't do it?
Sure. I have no regrets though, because, you know, in a class just like this, in Ms. Lavelle's class, one time they asked us, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be governor of the state of Arizona. And when I go to workshops, I laugh because, you know, I'm kind of I like to have fun. So I said, and from one corner of the room, I heard somebody go, Cállate, you're not even a citizen, you can't even vote, how you going to be governor, right? And I go, but I will be, you know, getting the positivity in there, dreaming big. Let's see, I didn't become governor, that's for sure, but I've been an advisor to 3 governors. So, and I was able to work in Raul Castro's campaign and elect him as the first Chicano, Latino, Mexicano, Hispanic, Hispanic, don't panic, governor. And it was fun. I worked the streets for him. I still work for, you know, I'm a big supporter of Raul Aguirre as a congressman. I like to think that I've had a lot with his elections, we've been able to help him win. I have worked with many other, in the campaign for Macario Saldate for state, you know, rep, and many others. So I haven't become governor yet, I gotta say that. So the young electorate over there should be watching me. But really, thank God. I mean, I think I wanted to be an announcer. I became an announcer. I wanted to be a manager. Became a manager. I wanted to be a businessman. Became a businessman. I don't think that there's anything that I have really focused on that I wanted to, that I have not accomplished. Except, you know, getting to, you know, to those millions and millions of dollars, which we're still working on. So I guess, you know, I think wealth of every sort is what we should pursue. Intellectual wealth, emotional wealth, and actually, you know, material wealth is also real good. You know, it don't hurt. So I still have a few years left, so I'm still working on a few objectives to reach. And those are the ones that I'm focusing in, which is mostly create generational wealth for the community, for my children, build other enterprises where people can feed their families well and have decent jobs and intellectually stimulating our audience. You know, I think the one thing that I like to do, and you mentioned earlier, I think that you want to be a director. I've directed a lot of stuff, but I would love to make a film, you know, a big film, and go to the Oscars and win.
And what's your most recent activism or project that you've worked on?
Well, the most recent has been the Chicano studies, the banning of the 2281 law that took out the curriculum for Tucson Unified School District. Like I said, I'm the chairman of that board. We tried really hard. I mean, we are limited in the board, but very active in terms of our political activism to try to change the minds of politicians, the legislature, try to make sure that the board, the school board here, understands that local control is very important And that when almost 70, a little over 70% of your audience of this school system is Mexican American, is Chicano, you owe that population more respect. You owe them, since they're your biggest customers. You see, I'm a businessman now, and I understand, consumers. So this wouldn't happen. A bank will never do that. I sit on the board of Wells Fargo Bank, the advisory council. They will never dream of saying, to the Mexicanos, the Chicanos, we don't want your business. They will go after your business. The electrical company will never, when Tucson is almost 45% of the population, they wouldn't go, well, if you don't like your light, get out of here. We're going to turn them off. They wouldn't do that. Jim Click, he wants to sell all the F1, what is it, F21s, 100s? F-150s, there, I'm not a trucker guy. F-150, I like the luxury cars. Anyway, but F-150s, he wouldn't say, I don't want the Latino consumer. So the same thing, this district needs to understand that we are millions of dollars of investment into this educational system. So that's been my last thing, trying to reinstate the Chicano Studies TUSD the way they originally were intended, with the strength that it is, and then making them available to all people. And understanding that culture is very, very important. It's like art, art and music. If you don't have art and music in your lives, you might as well be an industrial robot. Might as well be a robot, because music and art and painting, and sculpture. I mean, a friend of mine, Mena, who also came to the school. I mean, talking about an inspiration, he's a great guy. He lives up his art. He is just an amazing artist, recognized worldwide, worldwide as one of the top artists. He's one of the top Chicano artists in America and in the world. I mean, he's great, but that's what we feed on. So, and that's part of Chicano studies. That's part of our culture. That's part of our history. I always say that from Michigan to Michoacan, we have been here for thousands of years. So we are worthy of that excellence and that respect. So in the last few years, I've been working on trying to make sure that becomes part of the educational order, because it enriches every one of us. And I'm very proud of my culture. I'm very proud of being, Mexican. I'm very proud of being Chicano, if there is a difference. I'm very proud of our art and our muralism and our sculptors and our painters and writers. We cannot be intellectually starved by a district that doesn't understand us or fears us. So that has been my focus as a chairman and as a Chicano art activist and as a business owner. I see the ramifications of not having a well-rounded education, and that includes knowing who we are. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, that was my last question. I don't know.
That was your last question? That's it? I'm just kidding.
I don't know if you guys want to add on.
Do you have anything else to add? What do you guys want to do when you grow up?
I want to work in criminal science.
Criminal science. And you?
Be a director, direct horror films.
Horror films.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, I wish you lots of luck. I hope, remember, just think, plan, and act.
Thank you.
Same with you. It'll be great. Because women are just taking it over. You know that.
Yeah.
We have a lot of competition right here.